My friends, good morning to all of you. Welcome to the webinar on category management in procurement. Many thanks for your participation. The key objective which I look for in this session today is to learn what is category. Why should we transform ourselves to category? How of category? Basically, the map of category. How do I implement it? How do I transform my activities and what changes are required? So I'll try to go through all these things within 1 hour. In short, if I had to start with, I'll say for better understanding, let's break the whole concept of category management in two parts. One is category, one is management. So category means when I bring several related items. Related item means could be like office supply, wide range of items. Electronic item, wide range of medical supplies, many items. I could call them by item or I could call them with a category. So when I'm making a particular deal, I club them all together. So then actually the deal size becomes bigger and you get the volume discount better. You have much power in negotiation. So that's what we call as category. The next concept is management. So category and the next is management. The various procurement tools, including technologies, apply to maximize the value. So when we are talking of category management, we are focusing on value. We are not focusing only on the price reduction. Good old days of procurement. How much saving you brought? But you can't bring on saving every year from the same supplier. If I've given you 10% this year as a supplier, next year again 10% from me, ultimately I'll reach the bones. So that means there has to think of new ways of getting it. So in category management, we focus on the bottom line. I'm not ignoring the bottom line, but the top line also. The top line, how are we able to influence the business decisions? We're not just a support function. We want to support the business decision also. Unlike if I say the traditional procurement, which we are used to it, of 70s and 80s and 90s, still some companies are running in the 90s. They are forgetting we are 21st century. So in the 21st centuries, I think we all have learned in the last 1 year, we need to change our processes. We need to go up forward. So we don't have to use 20th century tools. We have to use 21st century tools. Right? So unlike traditional procurement, it is not a step within the supply chain. If somebody says, guys, what is supply chain? Procurement is one part of it. Logistics is another part of it. I would say when I say category management, it gets in every step how to better deliver the outcome. So this is where the category management comes into play. Now let's get down to the game. That is the details part. The whole category management basically came from retail business. So in the retail business, this was very popular. The procurement people said, guys, when retail business category management, I'm the head of category for electronic item if I'm working with any retail companies, big Amazon or someone's. But people said, why not in procurement? So this is where my focus would be category management in procurement. The concept is more or less similar, except the steps involved are different. The focus of this one is obviously to amplify your procurement team's reach. Your reach is not just shopping. Your reach is not just buying. You want to influence the business decision at the top level. When 70 to 80% of the company's spend is all going through procurement, major share of the revenue comes through procurement, then certainly you have a role to basically impact the business decision as well. So this is what I think the focus would be. Now the learning objective, I've given you some flavor of it. So I'll go through the procurement journey and evolution. Some of you, because each one of you come from a different backgrounds. So some are maybe still at the level 1, we call as a procurement 1.0. Some might have migrated from 1.0 to 2.0. Some might have gone to 3.0. But 4, I doubt, honestly, I would love to hear from you if anyone says 4 is the next one, the digital procurement. So that's the next chain around. So we'll talk about the evolution part. What is category and why? That's always a question. It costs money. differences between category management and strategic sourcing. We are evolving. Many of you are still, I know, working on strategic sourcing. We are moving from strategic sourcing to the next level of category management. Is it the same thing or is it a different thing? So that's what we will try to explain around. What are the practical approach? How do I implement? Keep in mind, category management, including strategic sourcing, starts with spend, spend, spend. Spend is a key data point. So spend analysis will touch on it. Long-term gains on category management. Digitalization of the process around. Now, keeping in mind the popularity, I would say in the last 2 or 3 years on the category management, we have already started one certification program also called CCM. Certified Category Management. Those who want to get more details, they can get in touch with my colleague. She's also there in the team today. Her name is Ria. Now let's get down to the very first, procurement, misconception of procurement. No, misconception of procurement is as good as if I talk about the Jebra. By looking at the Jebra, everybody thinks it's white with a black strip. Okay, if you look at the belly of the Jebra, to a large extent is white, and the black strip ends there. Then everybody thinks it's a white with a black strip. Technically, it has a dark skin beneath fur, and the furs are coming same color, but those places the furs become deactivated, so they remain black. The pigmentation does not become deactivated in those areas, it becomes white around, other places black. So it's basically a black with a white strip. So same way like procurement, why I took this example, people are confused about this. Procurement, I'm not saying is an animal, but procurement also is misunderstood by many people. So misconception is procurement is not a difficult job. Anybody can do it, get 3 quotations, place an order. It's a piece of cake. Anybody can walk in. So procurement is not a function of choice. And which is correct, I would say. If I would have gone 2 decades back even, if I asked someone, do you want to join a procurement, and the guy has done from the best school, I said, no, come on, this is not my cup of tea. Ask yourself. But in the last few years, I'm seeing many people moving into procurement or supply chain. It's becoming a very popular profession. And the good thing about this, I would say, if I look at the COVID-19, hardly anybody lost a job who were in procurement and supply chain. So this function becomes much more prominent. It becomes the talk of the discussion everywhere around whenever there's a problem. There's no problem, nobody talks about procurement or supply chain. But whenever there's a problem, when there's a recession like of 2008, when I was in the US that time, so 2008 recession, everybody was talking supply chain. Today again, when I see the last year's COVID period still, everybody talks of procurement, how do we ensure continuity, how do we ensure resilience, how do we build agility part. So those words are becoming very common. Procurement is a back office. They say, guys, give them a back office. And I've seen those days. In any company, any building, procurement was given the lowest office, the dirty office. They thought the procurement people are dealing with suppliers. Let them deal outside, let them not waste our beauty. The marketing, finance, they would give the best office, but not the procurement. They were back office. But things have changed now. But things have changed in terms of perception, but we have to change our approach also. And even in the indirect procurement, I'm sure in many of your companies, if you think in-house, I know many of you by now, but I've been for the last 10 years traveling with most of the companies. The acquisition comes from, let's say, HR department wants some services, legal wants some services, audit wants some services, IT people want some software. They give you the requisition, and indirectly, behind the requisition, there's the supply. And this is my budget. And your job is only to place an order and negotiate a bit price. That's all. So I think this perception has to change. And if you go back, Porter's value chain, Porter has not put procurement in the key function. Porter has put down the procurement in the support function. Technology is support function. HR is a support. But now the things are turning it around. This model was very good when company was vertically integrated. Most of the things were made in-house. Today, 70–80% is gone out, outsourced. Think of iPhone company, Apple company, 100% outsourced. Who runs it? Supply chain. Even the CEO guy comes from a supply chain background. So the more and more business companies are maturing, they're outsourcing a lot. So naturally, the role of new people become very visible. So the concept of support function is changing. Traditionally, if I look at the procurement, the game starts from specs. Well, the specs are also given to you by someone. This is where we want the role of new people to look. Because the game is fixed, the price is fixed at the spec stage. If I can change the specs, change the material, change it without compromising quality, with your knowledge and with your product knowledge and the market knowledge, you can play a key role. Develop contract terms. Every contract has a risk. Let's be honest. I've got only one supplier and I have no choice. That means there are bound to be risks. Now, those risks, how do I protect myself? Like last year, every one of us learned around force majeure definitions. Everybody was protecting themselves in the force majeure. Sorry, I can't deliver you chip. I can't deliver you this because of the COVID-19. Have we protected ourselves? So that is again in the routine traditional, again I'm looking at that. Source the procurement market, appraise the supplier, invite this one offers around, analyze, negotiate, award the contract, and then you do supply. This is a very typical, you can say, tactical procurement and operational procurement. Now, this tactical and operational procurement looks like the pyramid which I'm showing on the left side. O is very heavy. Operation. E is tactical. S is strategy. You can see the profile of the person also. The more you go into strategy, you become very important. In terms of your career, in terms of your salary, it goes up. Operation, oh yeah, you are an operation guy. You're basically a firefighter. You work very hard, but you're a firefighter. Your profile is not that important as the S one. So O is a very heavy one. I have seen I started my career with Voltas, Tata's company, long back, before I moved to the US. O used to be very long. If I've got 100 people in the department, 80% people will be working, out of 100, 80 will be working on O function and T function. Only 20% people will be working on S function, who are thinking little long-term planning, strategizing. 80% of the team work, 80-20 formulas, for working either O function and T function. Or I could say around 60, then T could be 20, and the S could be another. S could be even smaller than that, to be honest. And this is what we are calling in today's world, I'm calling as ugly duck. This pyramid concept, which we went to the business school of my generation, we were all the time taught about pyramid. Many of you must have gone through the pyramid culture. Now the new generation say, guys, outdated. And you want to work with the new generation. So keep in mind, this is an outdated ugly duck. And this ugly duck has to be transformed to make it beautiful. To make it beautiful means making more profit, making better jobs, more effective, more smarter. So make it smarter means you have to convert the ugly duck by turning it around. Put more people in S. O function. What is O function? Is a repetitive function. I'm calling it the word repetitive. Boring for some people who are well qualified. And also mundane job. And those jobs, if are boring and repetitive, to a lot extent can be automated. 3-4 years back, I won't have told you. The Western country started around, but India now has also picked up the momentum. So O function is becoming automated. So O has become shrunk. T remains more or less same for the time being. But then the O function has become, some of them have become strategic. It's gone to the S. S has become bigger thing. So my job, that means I need a different type of skill set. So that means people have to be trained to move from one level to another level. So this is the way I'm calling the ugly duck to change it up. Now, this we talk about Redux. So we started with price. The old function was all O function, P function. Then there was a cost management function, PCO concepts. Then came, guys, strategic sourcing. I know many of you have already implemented strategic sourcing. Strategic sourcing. So you are sourcing it on a long-term basis. Strategic means long-term. And you're aligning with the corporate objective as well. What is the corporate objective? X and Y is going to improve the quality. We have got too much rejections. Cut down the costs around. Our cost is higher than our competitors. No, you're aligning yourself with that object. And this happened, I know at that time I was in the Denmark around. So it came in the end of 87. And we were the first one to implement. And I know the processes which I went through. Then we came in the last decade around category management. Strategic sourcing, we were looking at a business unit by business. Now I say, guys, no, we need to look at the enterprise as a whole. We had 200 country offices. How could I combine together? And it was not possible in the 80s because computer system was not so smart enough to communicate. Today's computer system have connected everybody around. You might be in any part of the world. So because of that, people say, guys, we can centralize that. In 70s, 80s, 90s, the model was decentralized, decentralized, decentralized. I'm sure in your organization also, the concept is coming around, guys. No, let's centralize a big value item, not the nitty-gritty small items around. Routine items you take care of, but the high value item, high risk item, is a guy, let's centralize at a corporate level, not a unit level. So category management came around. Now category management also focuses on value. And same philosophy goes now more and more. Focus is going on the value. I'm just showing you strategic little bit because again, strategic sourcing has matured to category. So strategic sourcing is nothing that you identify based on spend, some of the items, and then you make source to contract. You source it and you make a contract. But you don't really make commitment around. Commitments are done at the P2P level, procurement operation. So I have got company has got the long-term agreements. At P2P stage, guys, okay, I got the now final request. It's must. I do. Then they went about. And this whole thing has got upgraded later on to category one. So when I say upgrading, now how does the framework look like? I think all procurement people have to start aligning with the business strategy, the mission of the organization. Wherever you work, every company has a mission. Every company has a business strategy. And I want you to do aligning with the business strategy. So you are basically helping to improve the business. So when you say improve the business, mean you are helping them and improve the revenue. So you make your own category strategy. You make a procurement strategy, then within procurement, I have got 10, 12 categories in your category strategy. Category strategy could be for consulting, category could be for facility management. I leave it to you depending on the spend and the risk, what category. Then the next thing comes is category tools which they have. The tools which we have, the very first tool is strategic sourcing. So keep in mind the tools which we have is strategic sourcing. And the second one is the demand. Now some of you think, guys, I know because we are doing a program with the World Bank on this. So demand management, people think, guys, what is procurement people do? I would say yes. Don't you think you make a procurement plan? And procurement plan, what you make around is somebody says has given you the list around and you make your plan. And now it was a wonderful thing a few years back, but today sales plans are changing every time. And sales plans are very much inflated. So you need to make up your demand plan so that you commit with the supplier. Otherwise your inventory could inflate too much. So you need to get into the demand. Supplier management, managing supplier, because the value comes from supplier. How do I manage relationship? Performance management. The next one is contract. You given a contract, you can't just sleep now, guys. I've given a contract. If the guy doesn't do, I'll throw him out. That doesn't work alone. You need to have a wonderful relationship. You need to check the performance of it around. You don't want to be told on the last day, sorry guys, I can't deliver you because there's a strike somewhere. My raw material is coming from tier 2, tier 3, and they have closed down, I can't do anything. You are questionable. Let me be honest with you. Your management can question you. Don't give me this answer. Were you not aware this company is having a trouble? So contact management to come in. Optimizing the contract. How best I can get the deal out. So same thing I will try to explain more clarity. Now, one is the business strategy. Very game first one. So if you want to get a strategic alliance excellence, you have to think about this one, procurement vision. But the central picture which I can show you, the category strategy, you need to do strategic sourcing, you need to do demand management, you need to do supplier management, transaction management, and risk management. We never bothered much on the risk, except a few financial risks. But today we are looking at the risk on quality, risk on delivery, risk on everything, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this has also become important. Then there's the infrastructures. To do all this, we need to change the infrastructure. So category management is not just a new name for strategic sourcing. Again, I want to clarify because people have confusions. I would call strategic sourcing as a baby of category. So in short, strategic sourcing has got upgraded, not by the name, but different function, different improvements. So I would call strategic sourcing as a baby and the category management is the mother. So that's the way I look at it. So category management is looking at the corporate level. Strategic sourcing might be looking at a unit level. It's a one-time event, but this is end-to-end process. So this is the broad difference I would call around. So this is where again I've tried to explain around category management structure, two separate but related processes. The last I would call, as I explained to you, think of category management as a parent and strategy sourcing as a child. So I think that will give you a very good idea around that this is a different ballgame. What is category management? It's a structured approach. So category management is a structured approach. It's a data. It's a proactive. So data means I'm looking at the supplier data. I'm looking at the demand data. I'm looking at the market intelligence. I'm looking at the product knowledge around. So all those data are the key thing to make me smarter to take a decision. I'm not just going with my, oh, I've got 20 years experience, take my words. No, it has to be data driven. It has to be proven on paper, mathematically. So you used to develop this and this, implement sourcing and supply aggregate. And then the beautiful thing in this one comes in, you involve the stakeholders. You can't work in silos. Because if you want to bring savings around, you want to make changes around, you alone can't do it. You need to involve the stakeholders. So the future procurement leaders, if I call around, they are not the silos people, those who can work with the team, who can convince them that you also understand the technical side and you also understand the business side. You have the business acumen. So keeping those skills with you, you are smart enough to convince others and get the things done. Category is nothing, as I explained, is a group of items or services available from a similar base. If it's coming from the same supply base, why should I split it? Then why should I do it together? So when I take it together, I've got a much buying power. I can negotiate better. Supplier will listen to me. So that's really better. So the trend which I showed you in the way, the value part is becoming bigger and bigger. So that focus is quite a big around. So I think we have to focus quite a lot. I know price reduction still remains, TCO reduction remains, demand management also is very important nowadays. Because companies are finding in the last 1 year, 2 years, I can say, particularly after COVID-19, demand is fluctuating. Most of you who are working with any company or any organization You are only knowing maximum what month, next month I have to deliver. Next to next month, you are not aware. If you look at the PMI reports, which is called Purchasing Manager Index, which we prepare every year, every month, it goes up and down. Still not stable. Manufacturing has gone up this month. Services also gone up, but not much. So that shows the demand is fluctuating a lot. Instability is there. It's a volatile, I would say, uncertain. Now, when we talk about value, so value means I'm looking from two concepts around, from value engineering angle and value analysis. Engineering means I built in the value in my design. So I make a design which is easy to make, friendly to make, cost is better, but quality is improved. The look is improved, aesthetic is improved. Nowadays, many companies, I come across one guy, he's the chairman there. He says, we are only focusing on improving the aesthetic of the automobile. We design the component to improve the aesthetic and make it economical. So they design and then get it produced on something. That's a value engineering. Value analysis means you are a procurement guy, you are a supply chain guy, you meet around so many suppliers. And then you say, guys, this is too difficult to make. Is there a simple way to make it? Can I change the materials around? That is what we call the value analysis. One typical example I always quote in my workshop is, it dates back to 74, 75. We were making handles made of brass with chrome plate. It was costing us 35 rupees. And each handle was going into the fridge made by Voltas. 35 rupees, I know those days. And then somebody supplier told us, guys, why you are making a brass with a chrome plate? Why don't you use ABS? Acrylic butadiene styrene. In those days, this material came. And it can be chrome plate. Customer will never know is brass or ABS. And strength-wise, better than brass. Brass could have blows. ABS doesn't have any blows. So in short, I'm not compromising quality. I'm improving the quality. Look is improved. Price has gone down from 35, it came to 20. We were making around 1 million refrigerators. You can imagine around, if you save 10 or 15 rupees multiplied by this, this covers your whole lifetime salary. So that is what we call the balance. That means you're getting more functions with the same cost. A lower cost, but the function may remain same. So the ratio between the function and the cost is improved. Why category? So this is where very important around manage and exploit change business conditions. Business conditions are becoming, as said to you, complex and volatile. You want to manage them. You want to exploit them. So by exploiting them, you're clubbing various items into one group. That's what I'm calling category. You're becoming powerful. Supply consolidation. Supply economics around leverage the volume. And then internal resources also, and you to train the people on people knowledge to minimize the supply chain risk, develop supply, deliver cost savings. So this is where we're looking at. So when we come to the category management, broadly I would divide into 10 steps. The very first step is prioritize categories. Profile the categories. I've got so many categories around. Some are low value, some are high value, some are low risk, some have got high risk, some have got a very big impact. Amount may be small, but the impact is very big. It can stop your whole line. So impact is very high and low impact. On those parameters, I decide my priorities. Third, I'm talking of analyze the market. The market is changing. Many new companies are coming around every few. And you're looking at the world as a company around. So analyze the market around, gather the requirements, formulate the strategy now. I've got say 20 categories around. So within each category, depending on my spend, depending on my impact, depending on the risk, I need to find strategy. What should I do? One case, I got only one supplier. And if I don't listen to the supplier, I'm in trouble. And how do I manage my things? Another area where I've got multiple choices. I won't listen to X supplier if it doesn't follow our guidelines. I'll do reverse option. I'll do different approach. And low values, I don't want to spend my time too much on that. I'll basically use catalog approach. So formulate the strategy. So you can't have one approach for all. Execute strategies, implement and propose. That is very, very important around. You might have come with the wonderful tools, but at the end of the day, the success is all about implementation. I remember the time when I was traveling around for implementing ERP to we had 200 country offices around. Initially, everybody was grumbling, oh, we didn't, I'm talking 2005. Everybody's grumbling, oh, we don't have ERP. We need some tools around. And when we gave ERP, then again they were grumbling, oh, our hands have become too tight. It's too rigid system. Then we will train them up. And once people learn around, they become good for you. So people are very important. You can't ignore people without just buying technology alone can't help you. So category steps around, as I explained to you, analysis and segmentation of spend. The game starts from spend. You want to prioritize. Spend is a key. Then I make the profiling. Profiling could be done on many angles around impact-wise, risk-wise, holistic market approach. Where the market has changed. Earlier you had one supplier, now there are 20 suppliers. Your market has changed, then go ahead. Teach your philosophy, market strategy. Keep in mind, it's a proactive approach, ongoing. This cannot be done only after you get the request. It has to be proactive. It's an ongoing, it's an iterative process. It is not linear path. Guys, okay, I'll start from this end and close this end of it. Bye-bye. No, it's an iterative process. At the end of the chain, I learn the lesson, then I redo it. That's it. Opportunity analysis, data analysis, market analysis, all those things. Now, assessing the opportunity part is very important. Where to buy? When and how much to buy? If supplier says, sir, if you buy this much, I can give you this deal. As you know, in our personal life, when we go to the shopping, if I get 4 packets, I get 2 packets free, let's say. Other one is I buy packet by packet every week. So you have to look around what to do. Doing the market dynamics. Market is fluctuating. Risk identification. Evaluating major cost. What is the major cost? I'm buying copper cables. Copper is the major cost, 70-80%. Rest is very small. Now, how is this copper going around from the commodity level? Is it really going up or down? Or I'm buying crude oil? How it is affecting? How the world politics, the OPEC guidelines, how they affect you? You have to have full knowledge of this. And what is going to happen? And based on that, you can advise upon management to buy in advance. So outcomes, I mean, keeping in mind, you have to think around alternate suppliers, supply market analysis, when and how to buy. So those actions are there. Based on that, what outcomes are there? Spend, spend, spend. In the spend analysis, we always look around, who is buying it in my company? I've got 14 plants. What are they buying? When are they buying? And where they're buying? If they're buying from X country, all of them, and tomorrow we have a geopolitical relationship problem, or earthquake comes or flood comes, are we okay? Why we are buying? And how often organization experience? So your questions are becoming different. In the good old days, your question was all about pricing. Today, your questions relate to all the W's on H. But the data, what you collect, keep in mind the data has to be clean, validated. Otherwise, somebody knows your data is wrong. Show me this is not correct. The moment that people get the feeling the data is wrong, nobody will listen to you. You go and clean your data. So spend data, I think, is one of the critical areas which I have seen myself. Since we had 200 countries office around, and we were using 3 languages, French, Spanish, and English. People used to write in different languages. And I was the director for the supply chain activities around. So my worry was, how do I compile it? So that means I had to come with a coding system. People may do error in writing things. Typos could be there, but coding system can't go wrong. Computers understand coding system very well. So we developed the coding UNSPSC, United Nations standard product, standard classification, which was my baby. I built it from the scratch and used by SAP, Oracle, everybody now. So this is, I'm giving you a flavor of UNS PSC. The top level, the first 2 digits are segments. Next 2 digits is family. Next is class. Next is commodity. And then 10 digits. You can, if you want, you can do only 8 also. For this spend queue, what category item I'm buying, who's buying, and where we are buying. So this whole 3 things around become the queue. I can drill down this queue, pull any information about any company, any unit, and then take a proper decision. So that decision makes me more smart. Data does not make me smart. The data, when they become wisdom or intelligence, that makes me smart. So you have the data cleans, you have the data in spend analysis, and I'm able to analyze it, drill down any information. So that's the way cube looks like. And I could have information about the organization. I could have information about the geography part of it, supplier part of it, product category by category, time by time. One thing I can tell you on this, what we did around, which I still quote many places. What we did around, we had around close to 1 million type of goods and services around. We had the code for each one. And those suppliers which are shortlisted on an ongoing basis, we used to put down, guys, this is the item we buy on a regular basis. And any person in any part of the world want to deal with us, please register yourself in our system. And there used to be a cross-functional team which will analyze supplier, give them the weightage and storage, shortlist. If not shortlisted, out. So whenever I need, I get the request around, my computer system can analyze through AI. I'm talking of even 10 years back. So AI will link based on the code, pull out 20 suppliers, the best one, shooting for that. I could do reverse auction between 20 of them and place an order. So keep in mind, this field is becoming very much changed. So market intelligence, product intelligence, market analysis, computer intelligence. When we talk about market analysis, you need to obviously do the supplier analysis, SWOT analysis. I will expect from all of you to understand what is SWOT, what is 4 to 5 forces, what is value chain. These tools, everybody should know. They're becoming very basic necessity in procurement business. Let's talk of 4 to 5 forces. Anything you are trying to deal with the market, we want to know where do we stand? Who are my competitors? So in the center, I put down who are competing with me in my country and worldwide. Any new entrants are coming up. How are they affecting my business or the market as a whole? Like in solar systems are coming around, cars are coming, electric vehicles. So you want to see who are the new entrants who are coming up. Or even if they're not coming with the new technologies, they're coming with same technology, but more companies are coming. So that affects the business. Pressure from substitute. And some who are coming with a substitute, if I talk of electric vehicle, which are substituting your vehicle, or they're coming with another chemicals to substitute your own. So that means it affects your buying power, our supplier. So if you are the one you feel I'm the biggest buyer, naturally, then you dictate the price, you dictate the market. So buyer buying power goes up. But if there are more people coming up and market supply is limited, everybody wants to get from the same supplier. So what changed? Let's talk about the chips. Now chips are being used in every automobile, everywhere there are chips. But companies who are making chips are very few. So in the process, it has made them stronger. The supplier has become stronger worldwide. Many companies are suffering because they're not able to do the production because the chip is not there. So this is what one has to look around using the 4 to 5 forces. Then we need to see the segmenting of my supplier. All my suppliers, from where they're coming. If all segments are coming to one country, and this is what everybody noted in COVID-19 pandemic, The global hub was only one place or two places, that's all. Now everybody is thinking around, guys, the world can't survive with one global hub. We need multiple hubs. And this is where the government of India was also pushing it, with guys, we have a big demand, we have a big market around. We need to help to build the global market here also. So hub has to come here. Hub needs a lot of work around in terms of shipment, in terms of stocking, in terms of warehousing, logistics, whatever you talk about, and manufacturing also. So the segmentation part needs to be looked at. Another area which is very important for all of us is to know SWOT analysis. What are my strengths? Look at the internal factors. Internally, every company is strength and weakness. Nobody can say I'm the best. Somebody is very good for the product, strength of the product. Weakness is financial problem. Then I've got external factors. Who are my external factors? Those 80% of my products are coming from suppliers. I'm only making 10%. I'm only doing assembly, nothing else. But the parts are coming from my suppliers. But if those suppliers are innovative, I get a portion of it. But if they're not innovative, they are my threat. They're old-fashioned. Quality is poor. So keep in mind when you're giving a contract to X and Y, are they bringing opportunity for you or are they bringing threat for you? So that factor also you have to see around. I don't want that you have a weakness and they have a threat, you are a financial weakness, and the company whom you're giving a contract is also becoming bankrupt. It's a wrong combination. So supplier classifications, which are technical suppliers, strategic suppliers. So that is again we need to look around. Strategic means you need to have a different type of relationship. This model, which came in 1983, classic supply model, has become very important around based on the profit impact and based on the risk factor. Profit impact means if I spend more money, my impact is bigger. So those items which category where I'm spending more money, I have got a more profit impact. Risk means I've got less choices. Less choice means no risk. The supplier is not happy with me. They can say, guys, bye-bye. I've got another customer for you. So you need to divide all your spend into these 2x2 matrix, which are strategic items, which are leverage items, which are non-critical. And based on that, you need to come with a new approach. So some of you will think, what is this strategy? Now, these are the tools which are also used in strategic sourcing. Or even if I say strategic procurement, they're also there. But in category management, these are the part of the procurement tool which one needs to do. Survey also when you do, I'm sure you all do RFI, so I don't need to spend time on this. Request for information is very, very important. When we are appraising it, you want to know the technical performance, you want to know the product reliability, you want to know the lead time, you must have a scoring for each one. Appraising supplier is very, very important around, particularly nowadays, I would say from the financial angle, quality angle, you need to give vendor rating. So vendor rating, which we developed around in long back, when I was based in New York, we had rating based on price, quality, delivery, performance. And some of them were coming automated from the system. One or two areas where we had to put as a customer our input. And then the rating was done like we do for the staff, same way we did the rating for the supplier. And suppliers were called every 3 months, 6 months. Guys, your performance is 3 out of 5. The performance is 4 out of 5. And if it's 1 out of 5, I'm sorry, guys, we won't be able to work with you. So that type of feedback we need. So we have the performance equations, capability and motivations. Word motivation. In view of the time, I may not go into the depth, but keep in mind the company with whom you're signing a contract, they may be the most capable. I'm not questioning them. Are they motivated to work with? A question of motivation, I want each one of to evaluate. This could be a full day lesson, but I'm leaving it to you to understand. You need to look at the quality part, availability part, service, cost, and the rating of the supplier could be done on any of these. Relationship. It's one of the tools for the key tool, I would say, for category. So when we get into SRM, We are not doing like sales and procurement guys meeting together. I've got account manager from the sales side and I've got procurement guys meet. No, the two companies are meeting at different levels. So this is what we are calling, from traditional, we are moving into this SI, particularly for those which are strategic. So you need to define which are strategic, and based on that, your relationship will be there. Like in the preferred supplier, my focus is contract management, nothing else. I don't care for relationship. For strategic supplier, development supplier, I focus on relationship. And then we have got the whole chain. Those who are not doing good, then we phase them out. You can't keep them. This is again the sourcing. So when to centralize, where to do cross-function, where to decentralize, where to leverage, where to partner. I think this slide gives you a good picture of that. Negotiations, again, very important in all many fields around, even the traditional procurement as well, and in this one category numbers. You need to know how to prepare, how to do face-to-face psychology of the people, strategies, tactics, and that makes you off. There are steps involved around 7 steps. Has to be there. I can't do relationship management without knowing performance. So the very first thing is definition of my strategy, not my strategy. Evaluation criteria. So the way I told you, I'm looking at evaluation criteria is only 5, the one I developed. And I feel that works even till today. Collect and analyze performance reports. Conduct review. Track action points. So if you feel the rating of the supplier is only 2 out of 5, call the guy, review it, put the benchmark. If they still don't improve, then say, guys, sorry, we can't work. We are good friends, but we can't work. Then phase them out. So we buyer it, we monitor it, we report it. Buyer means I'm looking at 5 parameters. Quality, price, delivery, all these things. After sales service. So this is where you need to define your parameters. You need to know the KPIs. So you need to know compliance rate, you need to know supplier defect rate. All these KPIs should be there. I know presently our KPIs are not very big, exhaustive. And I'm not saying that one KPI list, one size for all, no. You need to develop your own depending on your requirement, depending on your strategy. So I've tried to put down here, which you have all access to this. Traditional one, if I'm breaking the silos, is like this. Supplier deals with procurement, customer deals with procurement, legal deals with procurement. But when I get into category management, we work as a team. We're working as a team. That's the key thing. Now the roadmap, if I talk around, is like this. So that means first you define the category and its objective. Map the process. You're existing as is. So sit down one day and say, guys, you are the boss of the department. As is, how does my flow happen? And then you say, what is happening? You will find what is as is and to be. As is what is going on, and to be is another one. Then you say the gap around. Guys, a big gap. Now companies have come up with a new software called process mining. I can mine the process and then tell you guys, this is what you plan, but actually is this. So you need a big gap around. So analyze the various aspects around, understand the stakeholders, understand the markets, and based on the gap, then you come with the category. So you come with the category plan, category action plan, what changes you can bring. So this gives you some idea about the roadmap of the day. Whenever you are trying to do the transformation, people are very important, let me be honest. Organization is equally important. The structure of the organization, the structure is very pyramid type. They don't work on peer-to-peer basis. Then the results won't be so good. Procurement processes need to be changed, standard operating procedures, manuals, everything need to be changed. People are not like a pyramid. People are like this connected here. You may be of different colors, you may be of different, you may be a boss, maybe this, no problems. But you work as a team. Learning skills around and strategic sourcing almost is a key tool for category management and technology. The purpose of technology is I want transparency. I want to know about tier 2 also. I'm not only linking with tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supplier also. The tier 1 may be only assembler. Tier 2 may be the one who makes it. The tier 3 may give the raw materials. I want to know so that I know very well when the crisis could happen. Well, friend, with this, I want to thank you all for the patient hearing.